What's up guys, welcome back to my Price Watch series. For more than a year now, we've been tracking the prices of GPUs. More recently, we've added memory and SSDs because there's an ongoing PC hardware shortage that's making it a little bit tough to buy PC parts at reasonable prices. The summary for today is that GPU prices are fairly stagnant. They've gotten a little bit worse, although there are a few standouts if you're looking to buy something right now. The RAM situation is similar. I'm going to explain why I do have a little bit of hope there, and there is a definite drop in DDR4 pricing. And then SSDs are probably the most disappointing for this month because prices have gone up notably in every category. All that said, let's dive in and take a look at the data.
Excellent!
Today's video is brought to you by the Paul's Hardware store on paulshardware.net, the only official source for Paul's Hardware merchandise. Tantalizing t-shirts, brilliant beer sets, high-quality hoodies, and more, all featuring the classic thumbscrew for tasteful and refined viewers, or the 8-bit thumbscrew for tasteful and refined viewers who hate curves. New designs are added sporadically and at random, so head over to paulshardware.net and get some of that sweet, sweet merch right now. Or not right now, after you watch the video. Either way. My data is gathered from PCPartPicker, so for any given component, I'm taking a look at, for example, RTX 5070s, looking at the lowest prices available, and then going in and vetting, double checking to make sure that the listed price is actually available from a reputable retailer or reseller. Then I'm gathering the 10 least expensive options for each category, providing the average as well as the lowest price. So we're going to start off with GPUs, as we usually do. These are the numbers for March. Pay attention to these columns over here, because this is the change from month to month, and then this is the price difference versus MSRP. You'll notice that all the prices were pretty much at or above MSRP in March. And then jumping over to April, you can see that we are still pretty much the same across the board, with just one standout of the 7800 XT being at its MSRP. There's also the 7900 XT, but that one never had a very good MSRP in the first place. I've also bolded some of the lowest prices that we saw for any of these components across the board, and that was mostly in Q4 for GPU prices. We did have a few price declines for the 5060 Ti 16 gig, the 5070, and the 5070 Ti 16 gig. But as those were all still very overpriced already last month, we're still paying $80, $85 or $200 over MSRP if we look at the 5070 Ti. Next, I'm going to run down the least expensive option for each type of GPU. If you're more interested in SSD or RAM pricing, you can use the timestamps to jump ahead. And I want to point out that I'm not recommending, in fact, I do not recommend buying any of these products at grossly marked up prices. If these products do not sell for the prices that they are at, eventually those prices will need to come down. So hopefully, as a community, we can exercise a bit of restraint, and eventually we should see more moderate prices for some of these graphics cards. We're starting with the RTX 5050, which has never been a graphics card that I recommended, even at its MSRP of $250, so it being $40 more expensive for the least expensive option does not sit very well either. It's a very underpowered card. There's lots of other options out there that would get you much more raw performance without paying too much more money. My alternative there would be one of the ARC graphics cards that we'll come to. The next step up from the 5050, in the Nvidia stack at least, is the RTX 5060 8 gig. That's currently selling for $350. That's a $50 markup over what the MSRP should be. Nvidia just really doesn't have a whole lot of budget-oriented options right now if you're looking for a deal, especially if you look at what the lowest prices have been on these cards. The cheapest 5060 8 gig was $279. For these prices, I would definitely opt for the AMD Radeon RX 9060 XT 8 gig if you're looking for something that's comparable in price, or if you want to give Intel a shot, again, the B570 and B580, although those are also marked up over what they should be, you at least get more VRAM along with those, because Nvidia's 5050, 5060, and 5060 Ti 8 gig all only have 8 gigs of VRAM. So in particular, if you're planning on playing at a high resolution, 2560 by 1440, high refresh rate, you're going to benefit from getting more VRAM. Unfortunately though, on the Nvidia side, the cheapest 16 gig card is the 5060 Ti. This one has a $430 MSRP, and even though the cheapest option came down a little bit this month in price, it was down by about $35 to $515 with this MSI Ventus option over on Newegg. I would still heavily consider the Radeon options, or again, those ARC cards as an alternative. Moving up to Nvidia's RTX 5070. This is one that I was recommending with only slight caveats back when pricing was more sensible. Now the cheapest option is $630. It is at least a instant promo code, not a mail-in rebate that you need to get it down to that price. That is $150 more than the cheapest price we've ever seen an RTX 5070 for, which was $480. That was back in November during the Black Friday Friday sales, so good job to anyone who took advantage of those when they came through. There's also a lot of manufacturers selling directly on their websites. Often manufacturers do not want to sell directly to consumers because there's additional costs incurred. There's logistics costs, they have to handle customer service, they have to handle returns. So that is why most manufacturers work with retailers like Amazon, Newegg, or Best Buy. They actually lose a little bit of money when they do that because they sell at lower prices in bulk to the retailers and distributors. But you can see in the current market, with prices as high as they are, they increase the profit margin significantly enough that the manufacturers are like, actually, we'll go ahead and handle the logistics, customer service, and everything, and put some good sales up directly on our manufacturer stores. That's, again, just one of the dynamics going on right now because of the prices. So there's a $630 5070 over on the MSI store as well. Next up, we had the 5070 Ti 16 gig, and this was also a heavily recommended card back when the pricing was more sensible at around $750 to $800. As you can see, the $950 option that I had found yesterday, actually, also a little bit of inside information. I shot this video twice. I shot it yesterday, I had to reshoot it today because I messed up with the filming a little bit. Anyway, point being, the cheapest 5070 Ti is now $966, not $950 anymore. And that is actually apparently being sold by Dell for $966. And you've even got to wait like 2 weeks for delivery on that one too. Double check delivery dates as you're making purchases, or if you're considering making purchases, because a lot of them are pushed out by like a couple weeks, and that might impact your buying decision. Anyway, again, it is frustrating that Nvidia's graphics cards that have more VRAM are all locked behind either significantly higher prices, like this is the price that you should theoretically be paying for like an RTX 5080 at this point, or you have to simply overpay for something like 5060 Ti 16 gig, which is a little bit more disappointing on the rasterization side compared to the price that you're gonna have to pay. Anyway, speaking of the 5080, cheapest one there is close to $1,300 now. Again, just not a great deal at all considering it's supposed to be a $1,000 graphics card. And then there's the 5090, a card that's supposed to sell for $2,000. And currently is selling for closer to $4,000. This one was supposed to be around $3,750, but it actually sold out, and so now the listing is coming from a third-party seller. Sites like Amazon and Newegg have marketplaces where third-party sellers can come in and list products. If you look at the feedback on a third-party seller, that will give you a good idea if they're legitimate or not. Veldstorm here apparently has a 4.4 rating after 2,000 plus reviews, so that seems like an okay third-party seller. It's just they're pricing it at $4,000, which I simply would not pay right now. On the plus side, there are a couple listings here that seem to have popped up since yesterday, such as Best Buy has this one for $3,300, except it's sold out. So if I have any advice for RTX 5090 buyers right now, it is congratulations on being independently wealthy, but don't immediately jump on these $4,000 listings. I've seen regular 5090s coming in at closer to $3,300 to $3,500. That's like a $500 plus savings over the least expensive options. You just have to stay on top of the listings a little bit because for instance, most of these lower price ones, the Asus and the Gigabyte down here are already sold out. It looks like our actual cheapest option is this Gigabyte for $3,800, and look, it comes with an X870 motherboard. Cool, so we'll go ahead and update the price on that one. It is now 190% of the $2,000 MSRP. Awesome. And I guess I might also say for a 5090, an X870E motherboard would be a better add-on. Okay, next up is AMD Radeon. The RX 7900 XT, not the XTX, has 20 gigs of VRAM, and that's actually a lot. If you're looking at like $1,300 or $1,000 5080s or 5070 Ti's, $700 to 20 gigs of VRAM. Yes, it is AMD's previous generation of graphics card, and this was selling for $680 last month. It is up $20, but if you need that VRAM buffer, if you're doing AI work or something that requires that, this is probably the best bang for your buck in terms of raw VRAM allocation. The RX 7800 XT is a 16 gig card for $500, so that actually brings it in at less than the 5060 Ti 16 gig, and this card is probably going to be about 10 to 15% faster in raw rasterization performance. So those are kind of the honorable mentions from the previous generation AMD Radeon cards, and it is at least like one of the only cards you can buy right now where you're like, I paid MSRP. Yes, it's a $500 MSRP from a card that came out several years ago, but that's the current market right now, so we gotta do what we can. The Radeon RX 9000 series are good cards, but none of them have maintained their MSRPs either. The 9060 XT is an 8GB card selling for $350, MSRP is $300. This is only a good option because the Nvidia options are actually more overpriced than this one. And if you are considering the 90XT 8GB, consider trying to scrape together about $70 more, because about $420 is what you'd need to pay for the 16GB version. And again, this is just a good option in terms of the amount you pay for a current generation graphics card as far as the price per gigabyte of VRAM. Moving up the stack, we have the RX 9070 non-XT going for $610 after this promo code. That's $60 over its MSRP. This is another card that I would be recommending all day at its MSRP. That said, it is a slightly better deal than Nvidia's GPUs in this price range, which is the RTX 5070 basically. You get more VRAM and a more powerful graphics card. It's probably not quite as good as the RTX 5070 in terms of ray tracing, but the 9000 series has made a lot of gains in that area. Then there's the RX 9070 XT, so currently going for about $700 after this promo code. And that is $100 over its MSRP. Between this and the non-XT, I would go for the non-XT. It's just a little bit more bang for your buck. But I'd really love to see both of these cards come down in price because I'd happily recommend them. Rounding things out, we have a couple current generation Intel Arc graphics cards, the B580 and B570. B570 has sold for as little as $200 versus its $220 MSRP. The B580 was down to $235 at one point. It has a $250 MSRP. It's currently going for $290, but at least you get a free GPU holder. I mean, yeah. These cards are still a little bit harder to recommend because they're marked up over MSRP. However, if you're on the budget, you need to spend less than $300 on a graphics card, and you want that VRAM, the 10GB B570 for about $247-ish, or the 12GB B580 for about $290. At least options in the current generation. Beyond this, I would look at used cards or GPUs that are maybe 1 or 2 generations old that sort of match that price and performance metric. All right, moving on to the second half-ish of this video, we have memory and SSDs. I've included both of those on this same chart. These are the March numbers, so you can compare to the April numbers. And as you can see, we've got a little bit of green down here because DDR4 prices have dropped a little bit. A bit of stagnation on the 32GB DDR5 6000 memory kits, and I'm separating these by like good speed and timings, or like just the most capacity you can get without any concern for speed of timing. So that's kind of like your good kits with good timings, your just get me the amount of memory I need, versus the just get me the cheapest memory that's 32GB kit and I don't care about the speed and timings. Those are the two listings, and that includes 32GB kits, 64GB kits for DDR5, and then for DDR4 we got 32GB kits as well. If you are looking to build a system on a budget right now, building on AM4 with a 16GB or 2x8GB DDR4 setup is probably the best option for a budget builder right now. And you can check out the most recent build video that I did, or the most recent build fix entry for options there. But if you're thinking about my intro and you're like, Paul, what are you talking about optimism? Look at all these prices at 400+% of the MSRP, or 350+% for 64GB kits. It's right here. If you look at the average price for March and the average price for April, you can actually see that for 3 months, it's been roughly the same, or it's been coming down a little bit. For the good 32GB DDR5 kits, there's actually multiple options right at $370. And I'm not saying that that's a good price, but the fact that they are bunching up at that price to me indicates that there might be some downward pressure on the price, and they're having trouble moving these kits at these prices. So again, if you can hold off on buying a memory kits for the time being, that would be great. We have like 3 solid kits here in terms of the specs and performance. Crucial Pro overclocking DDR5 6400 kit for $370. Here's a Patriot Viper Venom kit, also DDR5 6400 with CL32. That one's also $370. And then there's a Corsair Vengeance 32GB kit, DDR5 6000, but better timings at CL30. That one has a promo code that should also bring it down to that same $370 price. And when I'm looking at the worse RAM, or the RAM that doesn't have as good of timings, the price actually went up there if I'm just looking at the cheapest possible option. So that is perhaps a counter to my optimism for the good kits. But one of the places that has had like I don't want to say good pricing, but the most competitive pricing is Silicon Power, also a manufacturer. So this is one of those manufacturer stores, but they've been doing this thing where they like have this ridiculous list price and then they do these promo codes. So even though this kit is DDR5 6000, it does not have the greatest timings. It's CL36, and it's still about that $370 price after the $30 promo code. A similar kit here with the Corsair Vengeance RGB, not a kit that I'd recommend because for $370 you can get one of those other kits that has better speed and timings because this is CL36 DDR5 6000. Unfortunately, the 64 gig RAM kit deal that was available, I think for the past couple months, has disappeared. I guess that was just last month. There was a $600 64 gig kit that was pretty good. Now it's a $750 kit, which is $900 minus a $150 promo code for this G.Skill Flare X kit. Not a fantastic deal. Definitely anyone who's needing to build a workstation right now or something with more memory is suffering even worse than those who are trying to get by with something minimal. There's also a worse timings kit available over on Silicon Power. That's actually, well, that was a little bit cheaper. This is how like Silicon Power and some of these sites are sort of riding this wave of high prices and trying to, I think, maximize their profits because they have these promo codes that fluctuate a lot. There was a promo code that brought this kit down to $630 yesterday, but that was like a $100 plus promo code. Now it's only a $47 promo code. So that just goes to show that the 64 gig kits are definitely still in, probably seeing a bit higher demand so they can maintain those high prices. DDR4 though has actually come down a little bit by $15 to $20 depending on what type of kit you're looking at. But here's a Silicon Power DDR4 3200 kit for about $200. There's a similar kit over on the Silicon Power site that was also similarly priced, but the promo code has once again been adjusted, so I would buy from Amazon between the two of those, which in fact is what Silicon Power might be doing. It looks like they're matching Amazon pricing because Amazon has this exact same kit for $210. Oh, and look, it's sold by Silicon Power USA. So yeah, clearly they're just equalizing the price between their manufacturer web store and Amazon. All right, finishing things out with SSDs. Sad news, SSD prices have all gone up by fairly substantial amounts, depending on which category you're looking at. I have 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte, and 4 terabyte listed here. I'm not really distinguishing too much between like PCIe Gen 3, Gen 4, or Gen 5, just looking at NVMe drives, the lowest price per gigabyte, and then the cheapest 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte, or 4 terabyte drive that is out there. We might have a little bit of hope on the 2 terabyte side, which is good news because the 1 terabyte price has gone up by about $15. This one's $132 for the P400 Lite. The cheapest 2 terabyte drive was this Crucial P310, which is you know, a good performance Gen 4 drive, but it's $232.20. Last month, this was the best price, which is a Crucial P5 2 terabyte drive for $195, and then it was sold out again, and now it appears to be back in stock again. So this is linked in the description along with pretty much everything else I've talked about today, but I'm gonna hit refresh and cross fingers. It's still there. It's still there for now. Stock seems to be coming into Amazon for this drive, and it is definitely by a pretty substantial margin the best 2 terabyte option on the market right now. So hold out for that if you want to save yourself $40 or so. Lastly, we have the best 4 terabyte drive option, which is the Silicon Power UD90. This has been the cheapest 4 terabyte drive for several months now at least. It's not the fastest 4 terabyte drive or anything like that, but it is the lowest price you would need to pay for that capacity. It's about $413 after this promo code. However, last month it was $378, so that's a little bit tough to stomach. By the way, if you're just looking for like the best deal on an SSD, you can go to PCPartPicker, look at SSDs, toggle the NVMe option down here so you make sure you're not including SATA drives or anything like that. And then you can just sort by price per gigabyte, and that will show you that the cheapest price per gigabyte on an SSD right now is that Silicon Power UD90 4 terabyte drive for $412. Hold on a second, I take that back. It looks like PCPartPicker also refreshed, and they're now also showing that P5 Plus for $195 as well. But there's my charts, there's my data. Again, links to the parts I talked about are down in the video's description, but only buy if you really, really need to right now. Hold off if you can, because if people don't buy these parts at the inflated prices, then they will eventually be forced to bring those prices down. Thank you guys once again for stopping by. If you'd like to help support my channel, there's a link to my store, paulshardware.net, in the video description. You can buy yourself some shirts, mugs, pint glasses, or all manner of high quality merchandise. And of course, if you'd like to hit the thumbs up button or subscribe on your way out, that is greatly appreciated too. Thank you guys one last time for watching. We'll see you all in the next video.